I got the trees.
All right, let's get up here.
Oh, it's slowing down on the rain.
It's shaky, bruh.
Got you, brother.
Oh, man. Oh, God.
Welcome to the jungle. Look, the ghetto bird way over there now.
They looking for y'all.
So tell me about Compton.
Police, gangsters, police.
I get these overwhelming feelings of joy and happiness that freak me the fuck out. I got a solid one, my crew's solid, everything's good. And that shit trips me out to the point where it's like, oh, it can't stay like that, though.
How do you manage?
Flowers.
Whether you want to admit it or not, we just become dependent on that shit.
We can make an enemy blood and an enemy crip be homies.
While crime in America is declining overall, in some cities, like Baltimore, Chicago, and Los Angeles, violent crime is actually on the rise. With militarized police departments, gang hostilities, and citizens getting caught in the crossfire. I've met many veterans from overseas battlefields who returned with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and later found astounding success combating their crippling nightmares, hypervigilance, and suicidal thoughts by smoking weed.
With PTSD, your kind of vision gets blurry, like there's mud on the windshield. And this cannabis is kind of like the Windex. You spray on that mud and then you use a paper towel. Wow, now there's a whole different perspective.
So I've come to Compton, California, where gang-related homicides are at a 10-year high, to meet aspiring rapper and Compton native, John Boy Cool, to find out whether the massive consumption of chronic here is more than just a cultural stereotype, whether all these blazing blunts might actually be masking an undiagnosed, homegrown strain of PTSD. So Al, you grew up in Compton.
Yeah.
What's it like?
Shit, man, you got gang banging going on. You got a lot of hustling going on.
What about the cops?
Shit, they still crooked.
So what happened? You got shot?
I got shot, and everybody was like scattering. And he seen me like, let's get out. I was like, man, they still shooting.
But you started smiling about this.
Because I'm breathing.
When they use the word trap, it's a real trap, man. If it's not the drugs, it's a gangbang. If it's not the gangbang, then it's police. I done seen people get robbed in front of me. Machine guns, Uzis, like a battle, you know what I mean, every day.
Moms out here doing their thing.
Cool.
Moms,
Hi.
This is the man, Krishna, right here.
How you doing?
Hey, fine. How you doing,
Nice to meet
Krishna?
you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, sure.
What you got cooking?
Chicken links and right now chicken wings.
The Cajun ones?
The Cajun ones.
Right on.
She real with the spiciness.
What was the neighborhood like when you were growing up here?
It was gangs and everything, You had the Compton Crips, the Compton Bloods, and you had to try to walk around it and try to stay out of trouble. Back in the days, I ran with some gang members, you know what I mean, in high school.
When was it?
Well, now my age,
Oh,
like back in
no. I'm sorry, I didn't mean like that.
No, I'm just teasing. No, this was like late 70s, early 80s when the drugs were heavily infested in the neighborhoods.
I was wondering because I had more chicken to put on.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
Put these over here.
And John Sr., when you were growing up, going to high school, did you see a lot of stuff?
Now, I'm participating with the gang when I was younger. I got kicked out of high school for gang banging, stealing cars. I was doing everything. I was just that kid to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so then what was it like raising a kid here?
It was really hard because you're always scared every day. When he set off to school, I'm like nervous and I always gave him a checklist before he left. My little cousin down the street here was just in a McDonald's with red tennis shoes on and he got into a fight and they shot and killed him because of red tennis shoes.
I watch the little kids around here. If you don't want to join the gang, you can't hang out. And half of the kids around here is joining the gang.
So then what is the fear? You know what I mean? What's at the back of your head?
Life or death.
You gotta walk out the house with a starter package, you know what I'm saying? Police awareness, check. Opposing gangbanger hood awareness, check. Yeah, hop on in. Hey, don't be out here too long. I have people who's been in a situation where they opened their door and somebody blasted them. See you later. Booyah.
Bye, Ace.
Bye.
So right now, we're right by the Compton courthouse, pretty much the heart of Compton. which is the west side of Compton, you know, which is predominantly Bloods. The east side is predominantly Crips.
Why did you want to keep your car running?
I mean, you just keep your car running in situations that you don't want to, you know, be in and your car is off. Like about a year ago, we were shooting a music video, like right here. Like Centennial High, the high school. It's an elementary school right here. Dark, nighttime, you know, so we pulled up about probably 10, 15 cars deep, you know, had my friends park right here. I need all your headlights, you know, to put the light in right here so we shoot a video rapping this way, you know?
Right.
So, I have like a mental clock tick-tocking in my head like, hey, hurry up, you know, I don't want to be out here for more than 20 minutes tops, you know what I'm saying? Then we got all these people, we have Bloods and Crips with us, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we all related, you know.
Welcome everybody to my Rosecrans nightmare. Cops killing California, nigga, you can lose your life here. Police.
Sitting here, we're like, we're gonna do one more shot. Let's do this final scene running through this canal, like into the darkness. That's the end of the video, fade out. The main cameraman is like, all right, chill out 1 second. Let me switch my batteries, some camera technical shit. So my cousin picks up the behind the scenes camera.
Anybody want to say something on camera, let me know. I'm taking off.
About cool 10 seconds later, you know, I just hear it. It was like time stopped after the first gunshot. Really hear bling, bling, off these fences right here. Bling. Now I'm on the floor, adrenaline rushing. I don't know if I'm hit or not, you know?
Get in, get in, get in!
Cars crashing into each other.
Let's go. Where was he at? He was in the shadows by the school. I just thought he was with us.
I'm just thinking, like, blew it. You put yourself in a situation, you blew it, you did it, like, you know, congratulations.
Interested in learning about more clinical approaches to treating his trauma with pot, John Boy's joining me to meet Dr. Sue Sisley, a psychiatrist specializing in PTSD at a medical marijuana dispensary in LA. Hey, Dr. Sue, how's it going?
Good to see you.
John Boy,
nice to meet you, sir. Has anyone ever formally diagnosed you with PTSD?
I actually had a yearly physical with my normal doctor about a week ago, and he was asking me, you know, how am I sleeping, you know, how much I'm drinking, how much I'm smoking, and he kind of said, oh, you may, you know, need to go see a therapist, you know.
One of the things that people complain about the most with PTSD is the anxiety.
Paranoia.
Yeah, you have that?
One of the biggest things I have is paranoia.
How often do you use the plant?
All day.
All day, okay.
Yeah, from when I wake up till I go to sleep.
Yeah, because I wonder if there's a way that we can have you start using the plant to treat the symptoms, but not necessarily be dependent on it. Most of the flower here is high in THC. That's probably what you're using now. This mix that's richer in CBD, cannabidiol, might help quell that anxiety a little bit better and help you feel more functional. Also, this causes less dependency, so people can probably use less of it and not feel like you need it all day long and all night. What I want you to try to do is start using cannabis in response to symptoms that you're having. And that's why we want to empower you to take what you need, but not overdo it. So what he's pouring out for you, it'll be about 30 grams total, so that it'll cover you for 3 weeks and see if that's enough to manage your symptoms. Oh, there you go. Easy.
Enjoy it, my friend.
Thank you. Nice. Now you too.
Well, when you wake up in the morning, first thing is you pray that you don't go to jail that day. As kids, we're taught that you're going to see murder, you're going to see robbery, you're going to see police brutality. This is being black, and then just as growing up in an oppressed city such as Compton. We're 5, 6, 7 years old, we're playing outside, but every car that drives by, we gotta run and hide behind the car because we're playing a game called Drive-By. Not knowing that when we get older, this is a real life game. If they promised us a jail cell or a casket before the age of 21, like easy, easy. I've been at gunpoint on my own corner right here. A dude just walk up to me like, hey, where you from? And his homies behind him just yelling, shoot him. Like, fuck it, shoot him.
Just for shits, like?
For shits. Walked up to me, put a gun in my forehead, you know what I'm saying?
How old were you?
16. And in that moment, I literally felt my body go numb. Like, walking up to him with the gun out, I'm dead. He like, give me one reason I shouldn't smoke you. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, I don't know you to give you a reason, bro. He like, man, get your little ass home before I smoke it, you know? And I'm like, and then he's walking away, and I feel it like, just come down, I just start shaking, like, oh, shit. 30 seconds later, around the corner.
Yeah.
Same kid. Near-death experience, you know?
Are there moments where you're actually sort of triggered into that space where you feel unsafe, that you have to be hypervigilant because you're reminded of that time?
Definitely. Every day I walk out the house, I'm like, somebody's outside the door.
War veterans who've been to like wars overseas, they've been
yeah.
involved with some things that are just traumatic and terrible. They come back, and then they have that same feeling when they're leaving their door. They know that they're not in Afghanistan or Iraq. Is that different in some way from what you're going through?
Right, I'm still in Afghanistan.
While there aren't IEDs lining the road or mortars raining from the sky, John Boy's vivid memories seem to trap him in a persistent state of panic for fear that relaxing could be deadly. To understand the psychological dangers that John Boy might face, I'm speaking with Dr. Isaiah Pickens, a clinical psychologist and trauma expert. A lot of the times when people think of PTSD, they automatically think of veterans. Has the idea of PTSD been applied to people in urban situations?
Yeah, so in the past 2 decades, I think we've really started to look at how PTSD impacts people beyond soldiers and people who are going to war. When we talk about a traumatic event, we're talking about anything that makes someone feel like their life is threatened in some way. And when PTSD comes into play, people are triggered by things around them that remind them of that traumatic experience. When you're in urban communities where there's community violence, there's domestic violence, there's all these different traumas that are going on, it can create a different kind of trauma called complex trauma, where kids are really trying to figure out not just how to deal with the things that really made them feel unsafe in the past. It's really unsafe right now. So how do you navigate those two things?
Right. And how does this manifest itself in a place like Compton?
Let's say there was a young man who was going down the street and he didn't have anything on him, but a police stopped him, or he had a situation where he felt his life was threatened. And so now this police officer, police in general, can be a trigger for that response. And it's the flip side too. Say, for instance, a police officer had an incident where one of the people that they were trying to arrest pulled a gun on them, and that person was a black person or a Latino person. And now, because of that experience, there could be triggers, things that are related to that situation that now set them off even when that threat isn't present. People are getting hurt because you are seeing a situation as unsafe when it really isn't.
Trauma-triggered overreactions to everyday situations can escalate the violence between members of John Boy's community. So could rattled cops make matters worse? And instead of keeping the peace, could they be intensifying the cycle of violence? I'm in California, where some people growing up in high-crime environments are suffering from what may be described as complex trauma. To find out what it's like to patrol highly violent neighborhoods in Los Angeles, I'm headed over to meet Alex Salazar. He spent 9 years on the force in the LAPD as a narcotics officer and now works as a private investigator.
You know, South Central, which is where we're at here right now, this is a very high crime area. Night after night, we're responding to murder calls, robberies, carjackings, gang wars.
Alex saw a lot of brutality throughout his years on the force, but he's taken me to a street corner in downtown LA where that hostility became personal.
Happened right about right here. I was driving southbound. I saw this woman being attacked by this young male, Latino, looked like a gangbanger type. And so he's reaching at her neck, and I calmly walk over him as he's running, and then I just grab him, and then I throw him against the wall, and I say, police. And as I'm just kind of holding on to him, 6 other males come out. They ask me, show us your badge. And I tell them, I don't have to show you my fucking badge, you know? I'm the police, get the fuck out of here. You know, I got kind of crazy. And then I hear the sound of breaking glass. And these guys are now breaking the car windows of my brand new Mitsubishi. That's when I began walking backwards into the middle of the street over here. They're coming towards me, and that's when I take out my gun, and I'm saying, police. And then that's when a car hits me, and that's when I go down. You know, I laid there for what seemed like eternity until I heard the sound of the police units. The gangbangers had scattered. I got my ass kicked Sorry.
Yeah, no, I can see it's affecting you right now. Why does it feel so painful?
I try to help out somebody. And the end was me that ended up getting hurt. In the end, it was me that I changed on that day.
How did you change?
I stopped caring. I developed a lot of anger, a lot of hatred.
And how did it affect the rest of your life? How did it affect the way that you policed?
I was constantly thinking I was gonna get attacked again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would approach people in a more hostile manner. I became one of those egotistical asshole cops because I was afraid. I was out there taking out my rage, my anger on them, stereotyping people. That's how the old LAPD used to be. Your partner would tell you, I want you to go kick that guy's ass. And that person hadn't done a single damn thing.
That's crazy.
And you were ordered to go choke him out to prove your manhood.
I mean, it just sounds like a gang.
Except a gang that could do whatever the hell they wanted to do. A gang that could take your life under what they call a state-sanctioned murder, okay? Because the law is right behind you.
The LAPD wouldn't comment on Alex's depiction of police culture. So I'm meeting up with other LAPD officers at an old cop bar to learn how patrolling the streets has impacted them.
I worked a graveyard shift, and my partners would come here and drink at 7 in the morning.
All right, guys. Everyone else set up?
Cheers.
What is it about the job of being a police officer, of serving and protecting, that takes a toll on your lives in ways that maybe the general public doesn't understand?
You know, even to this day, most people don't even know what I've lived with.
Right.
If you go to a situation where someone you know has been shot, you know, once you get off the job and you go home, you'd like to be able to turn that off and on. But the reality is that these things keep running through your mind, and you get to a point where you become mentally challenged by being able to turn it off and on.
I was one of the rare officers that lived in the division that I patrolled, so every corner has a story for me. I'll drive by an alley, and that's an alley where a young girl was raped. I'll go by a corner, that's a corner where a gang member was shot. I'm always having flashbacks.
So you're sort of triggered by your surroundings?
Yes, definitely.
So, I mean, would you guys say that, you know, you have PTSD?
Yeah, I do. I do have it.
How did cops tend to cope with that kind of trauma?
Bars, drink. One of my partners, he told me he has to drink a case of beer every night after work.
Wow.
To wind down.
What about weed?
The policy is that we're forbidden from taking any sort of drugs of any kind that are illegal federally.
What happens if you're like, listen, I saw some shit, I feel like I can't deal with being out on the streets anymore. So what happens to you then?
Well, they take away your gun. They call it the rubber gun squad. You're ridiculed, you're mocked. So no police officer in their right mind is gonna tell the shrink, you know, I wanna kick the cat. I wanna beat my wife. I wanna beat my kids. I wanna take it out on the next person that talks back to me. Unfortunately, that's just the tragic part of law enforcement is the command staff. They do not want to admit that they have officers that are mentally ill.
When you got these issues psychologically, that's what leads to bad shootings, where officers are going off and they're doing crazy stuff. That's because they're emotionally challenged at that point.
During your time in the force, did you get counseling, support, the kind of like talk therapy and stuff that might have been able to help you through a lot of the trauma that you saw?
I did go to a counselor with a behavioral sciences section of the LAPD. I knew something was wrong with me, but I was never actually told what was wrong with me.
When you talk about PTSD, a lot of times people think about veterans. A lot of them end their own life. Is that something that happens with former cops?
You know, I lost 6 people that I knew, former police officers, due to suicide while as a Los Angeles police officer.
Now that you're retired, when these thoughts come through your head, when you're feeling the PTSD, the trigger is kicking in, what do you do?
A friend of mine, former cop, said, you should smoke some weed. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll try it. And I did, and I found that it really pacified me. It helped me not to have this very angry attitude. I like that effect of the marijuana where it allows you to talk and to get out those things that are really deeply rooted inside. The pain, those images that never leave your mind.
There you go. Sure. And what does that make you feel like, just that first hit?
For a little while, I can escape from the real violence that's going on out there all the time. And maybe if more cops had access to this type of thing, there wouldn't be so much anger or tension,
Back in Compton, John Boy's throwing a house party where smoking pot is totally normalized. But can weed provide the same relief for these guys who are dealing with complex trauma as it does for those with PTSD? Do you think there's any real way to treat the kind of PTSD that you feel in your life? Do you think there's like an answer in that way?
Part of life, Until you start asking me these questions and stuff, I never realized how much I thought about it or how many flashbacks just pop in my head once or twice a day.
What do you think it would actually take to make a neighborhood like Compton safer?
I could say more cops, but teaching the kids, it's the only way I feel you can really reach out to changing the community anywhere.
I'm always turned down. I'm never turned down. I put that on my roof, that's out. I put that on my roof, that's out.
Recognizing that some percentage of people who live in high crime, low income neighborhoods might suffer from what we call PTSD kind of exposes a hard truth. In America, there are neighborhoods, there are cities where the threat of violence is an everyday concern. What I've seen pot do for people with PTSD is to help them recraft an identity that's not about the worst things that has happened to them, but is about some future that they hope for themselves. For Alex, weed functions as an effective medication in processing the trauma he experienced. And knowing how gravely police violence affects communities of color, you'd hope that more cops could benefit from the kind of self-assessment weed seems to instigate in Alex. For guys like John Boy, growing up around so much violence has shaped his psyche in a really profound way. So marijuana's role is murkier. He may be treating his trauma or just masking it and relying on the escape it offers him. The problems associated with high crime communities in the US are bigger than marijuana. At best, it could be a Band-Aid. But until the deeply rooted historical problems of race and poverty are somehow addressed, cycles of trauma will persist. Stopping that cycle with any tools available is something we should all be rooting for.
I'm always turned down. I'm never turned down. I put that on my roof, that's out. Put that on my roof, that's out.